So being judgmental takes away our responsibility. So if we go back to the example of my partner, right? Well, if my partner's a fool, it starts to give me permission to act towards her in a certain way, be more dismissive. And it's the same when it's turned on yourself, right? Well, if I'm an idiot, then you can reach all sorts of other consequences for yourself from it. Or if you judge an emotion, someone's died, and you feel sad, and sadness is a stupid emotion, or anger is a stupid emotion. If you judge those things, there are consequences from it. So when you need that emotion, it then becomes problematic in your life. So judgment's about all sorts of different things, not just what we do, but we can judge in other ways. We can judge the way we look at things, our voice tone, our facial expressions. Oh yeah, I like those shoes, right? Yeah. And when we do this, we often judge from a point of anxiousness or anxiety. And so think it for yourself, right? Have you ever met anyone who's happy and judgmental at the same time? Generally not, right? It generally causes extreme distress. But not only that, right? Being judgmental leads to extreme emotions. And extreme emotions lead to extreme thinking. And extreme thinking leads to extreme actions. So if you think about societies and cultures that are very judgmental, maybe particularly religious ones, or things that are very dogmatic, they tend to try to impose their views on different societies and cultures. And this is always, throughout history, this has caused problems. So what we want you to do instead of judging, is going back to describing in a non-judgmental way. And I'm going to talk about that in a minute. So just to recap, being judgmental leads to catastrophic thinking. You don't find people that are happy and judgmental. And then there are consequences of it: extreme emotions, extreme actions, and a disastrous life. So what the idea behind it is you can see things, take in the details, take in the facts, but don't evaluate, right? So, say I presented to you a new shiny apple, right? There's a new apple just come off a tree, shiny and whole. And in the other hand, I had an apple that had been off a tree for 6 months, and it was brown and soft. Which one would you choose to eat? My guess is you'd choose the new one, right? However, which one would my compost heap choose? It would choose the other one, right? So there's things that match all of us. There's some things that work for some people and some for others. If I went on a safari, and say I went on a safari with my sister and my mum and my dad, and out on this safari, a lion ate my mum. My sister would be thinking, that is disastrous. But what would the lion be thinking? Probably be thinking, yeah, that's a tasty snack. So that's what we want to do. And on top of that, when we catch ourselves judging, we don't want to judge that as well. Yeah? So if you look at all aspects of religions, the aspects of religions where they talk about not judging, and groups of people that take those, what you see is that they are much more harmonious and they are much more peaceful in their outlook. And lots of religions have that. Of course, some religions distort truth, and there's all sorts of versions of it, but I'm just talking about the aspects that use non-judgmentalness. And this also tells you that this goes back thousands and thousands of years. There was aspects of this written in ancient Egypt and beyond that. So what I'll do now is I'm going to talk to you about the ways that you might start to do this. So to recap, throughout history, harmonious cultures have used what they call this non-judgmental stance. And when we judge, our minds are closed. So now we're going to go through some practical tips or some practice ideas for non-judgmental. So it is important to remember that This is a practice and not a skill. No one ever gets to be totally non-judgmental. The important thing is that we keep going for it. Right. So here are some ideas, just to maybe raise your awareness about being judgmental. Because remember earlier we talked about if you're not aware of something, then you can't really change it. So what you could do is you could have a counter or a clicker with you, and you could just go through your day and just count how many times that you're judgmental. You could, for example, change judgmental statements that you make. My wife's a fool versus my wife hasn't done the washing up that she promised to do. You could imagine a person that's done something that you didn't like, bring to mind what they did, and then look at it from their point of view, and just describe the actions that you saw. Or instead of judging something as good, bad, right, wrong, or whatever, what you could do is describe the consequences. So when you did that, when you stood on my toe, it really hurt. I'd like you to look where you're going next time. Or you could do the same thing. You could describe the feelings. When you called me an idiot, I got really upset. Yeah, I noticed an unpleasant thought that just went through my mind. Yeah, or I noticed that I had a thought about this. So the important thing for the skills that we give you is to think of this more like an all-you-can-eat Chinese buffet, right? What do you do when you first go up to that Chinese buffet? Most people, they take a bit of everything, don't they, the first time they go up, and the second time they might just pick the stuff that they like or the stuff that works for you. So practice some of these and go for the ones that work for you. So the challenge is why not do it? Why not do this for 4 or 5 weeks and see what happens? Because one thing I can tell you is that from the people I've known and the people I know that have felt better about themselves, about others, about the world, about life, is that they've done this part of it again and again and again. So why don't you? So remember, it's about practicing this again and again. Think about the Chinese buffet, and remember to change the statements from judgmental to non-judgmental. Describe instead. So if you found this helpful, you can find all the other resources on our Instagram page.